friends, Jewel back with you. So let's talk about the square between Mercury and Saturn in a composite chart. When this occurs, we have a narrowness of communication. That can happen with all of the hard aspects between Mercury and Saturn. With the square, it's more of a constant conflict. So there tends to be more communicative distance between the two of us, more a kind of a seething isolation when it comes to the sharing of ideas or communicating big ideas. So we tend to not make very much of an effort naturally when the square occurs to share, to communicate, to connect mentally. And we can get into this pattern of only talking about superficial things, the daily grind, what may be going on in our work life, our professional life, not really talking about feelings, not a lot of meaningful conversation there. No conversation for the sake of conversation. The other thing that can come up is that criticism or negativity can be something that we focus on and communicate about mostly. And so between the narrowness of what we're talking mostly about external things, and bringing up a lot of what we don't like about each other and what is lacking and just a lot of criticism, it can be a very caustic aspect to have in a composite chart. If we can't get a handle on this, if we really can't figure out how to deal with the square, a lot of times people decide not to be together because it feels like to deal with it, it's going to require so much effort, so much energy, and they just don't have it in them. So we really have to try to deal with this one sooner than later in a relationship. Did you ever see Pulp Fiction? It was one of the first movies that ever introduced conversation for the sake of conversation, dialogue simply because it was interesting. And some of what they talked about that was most memorable in that movie, that was actually most attention grabbing, it was not conversation that furthered the plot. It was just simply conversation that was full of humor and rapport between actors. And so that's what we're going for with this particular score. That's what we want to introduce and we want to encourage, is conversation about the cheese royale and things that don't necessarily have anything to do with anything. It just happens to be what's on our mind at the time. And another way that we can address this aspect is if we use the formality that it causes. We use sort of the natural outcome of the square, which is that narrowness or that formality. We use that to set a date, to connect, to share, to communicate. So it's like we get a babysitter every Friday night or every Saturday night, or we agree that we have date night every weekend. And that's when we don't just do something. It isn't just about having our attention on some activity. It's about talking and sharing. It's about spending time being face to face with each other. So it's like scheduled into the relationship. That can be extremely helpful because it's on the books. That's very much in tune with how we're going to blend naturally. And then we can also use that to extend how we're related to each other and expand each other's point of view rather than collapse it over the course of time. Because again, we're talking and relating in a much more narrow way over the course of time unless we're really addressing this. And it can become a strength. It can become a strength to share what's on our minds and to accept the other person's thoughts. There can be a side to this also before we've solved it, where we can be more critical of each other's opinions and ideas, and that does not encourage either one of us to share those. And so if we know that about the relationship, if we know that about the dynamic between the two of us, then we can remind ourselves, oh, okay, you know what, that may not be what I would think or do, or what my political opinion or view of that situation is, but I'm going to listen to that side of things because there may be something in that that actually does ring true for me. And you will be very surprised that very much of the time there is, that they may have a point of view or some type of experience or just a perspective that really can inform us. So we can learn from each other, but we have to make an effort to do so. And it is what it is. It's one of those aspects that it's not easy. It can be rewarding, as all the hard aspects can be. It can be very rewarding to deal with it, to work through it, and there can be some strengths between the two of us when we come out the other side. Sort of a strength in approaching difficult situations or solving problems between the two of us in a mature, more far-sighted fashion, where we say, you know what, I know that this is going on and this needs to be solved and we need to address this. We have our date on Friday night. We are going to work this out. And so there are ways that we can use the narrowness and the formality to our advantage and actually learn to enjoy the conversation between the two of us. So you can find me on the internet at Truth and Aspect Astrology, Facebook, Instagram, other social media, all at Truth and Aspect Astrology. I do private consultation, and I have a subscriber option on my website if you are interested in more content, question and answer videos, teaching videos, all kinds of stuff over there. So join me over there if you're looking for more, and I'll be back soon.